Hey there, aspiring eggheads! Looking for a way to get some monthly income through your stocks and investments? Well, the thing is, dividends are more commonly paid quarterly at every 4 months or annually at the end of the year. But some stocks and investments offer to pay their shareholders dividends on a monthly basis. Imagine not having to wait for 12 months to reap the benefits of your stocks and investments. That sounds so nice. So, we're here to give you our list of the top 6 ETFs that pay dividends monthly. That's right, you'll get your money every single month. Our list is based on the ETFs with the highest dividends, which will offer you the most from all the others out there. So for sure, you'll get the most bang for your buck. So you'll get money in the shortest possible time with the most amount that you can get. But before we dive in, why don't we take a short detour to discuss dividend yields and what that means to you as the investor? We're talking how much money that's going to your account based on the actual dollars you'll get from the dividend yield percentage. First things first, stocks pay out dividends on a per share basis. If, for example, you own 10 shares of stock in company ABC and each stock pays 3 dividends, then that means you get a yearly 30 dividends. Now, if we want to talk about the actual money that you're going to get, then we'll have to look into the dollars you get per share of the stock based on a dividend yield percentage. There's an easy formula for this actually. Dividend percent yield divided by 100 times the stock's current price. So, if we take a theoretical ETF, let's say XYZ, and it has a dividend yield of 7.80%, we divide that by 100, which gives us 0.078 multiplied by their stock price, which we could say is $21.50. So, 0.078 times 21.5, that gives us roughly around 1.7 dividends per year per share of the ETF that you own. That may not seem much because that's what you get from owning one share of the ETF. And if you look at it monthly, so that's divided by 12, you'll earn only about 14 cents a month in dividends. So, in order to get as much out of it, the idea is to own as many shares as possible in those dividend ETFs. Looking at it this way, if you own 1,000 shares of XYZ, then that's around $1,700 per year in dividend payments. And by monthly dividends, you get an estimate of about $140 per month. And if you want more monthly dividends, then the logical course of action is to buy more shares of the dividend stocks or ETFs, which will give you more money earned per month. This is how people with a substantial amount of stock or ETF investments can live off comfortably from their dividends alone. I guess that's the important part you'll need to know when earning your dividend yields. If some parts still confuse you, or if you have any questions about what we've been talking about so far, then don't hesitate to comment down below. We got you covered. So now, why don't we get into the actual meat of the video as we go through the top 6 monthly dividend ETFs. Aside from their ranking, we'll also be seeing how risky they are. So here in our risk-o-meter, from a number 1 being very low risk to number 5 being a very high risk. DHS. Coming in at number 6 is the Wisdomtree U.S. High Dividend Fund or DHS. This ETF involves the companies with high dividend yield in the U.S. stock market. They already track these investments for you. So, if you purchase a share of this ETF, it automatically links your portfolio to the highest dividend-paying stocks in the U.S. market. Some big names from the 311 stocks they currently hold include Pfizer, Verizon, and Coca-Cola. DHS has shown great performance in the past 10 years, averaging annual returns to about 10.17%. So, if you started off with $10,000 in 2012, after 10 years, it would now be close to $30,000. Now, adding to its dividend yield of 3.4%, which is already a great value on top of the annual returns, but it's not even the highest on our list. Stay tuned to see more of those. Now, let's look at our risk-o-meter. DHS is around a 3, since its expense ratio is at 0.38%. So if you have invested $10,000, expect to pay $38 from that. Although it's not the cheapest ETF in the world, it's also not the most expensive. Our marker here is anything below 0.5% expense ratio would be considered budget-friendly, while those above that fall on the more expensive side of the ETFs. SPHD. With that, we press on forward with the Invesco S&P 500 High Dividend Low Volatility ETF, or in short, SPHD. This ETF is based on an index that tracks the 50 least volatile, high dividend yielding stocks in the S&P 500. Since this ETF was assigned from this index, it's a safe and solid choice to invest your dividend portfolio. With 51 stocks under their belt and top holdings like Kinder Morgan, Altria Group, and also AT&T, their performance since inception has shown a yearly return with an estimate of 10.22%. So with $10,000 invested, it's going to grow up to a little over $25,000 in 10 years. Your investment will have good capital appreciation along with receiving high dividends every month, which SPHD pays you 3.75% in monthly dividends. On our risk-o-meter, this ETF rates a 3 on riskiness since it invests in stocks that have low volatility and its expense ratio comes at 0.30%, which is $30 per year from $10,000 invested. SPHD is a really solid choice as an income investor, but we still have other options down the list. PGX. Top 4 is the Invesco Preferred ETF, or PGX, which tracks the performance of the ICE BOF-AML Core Plus Fixed Rate Preferred Securities Index. Now, that was a mouthful. This ETF only invests in preferred stock shares. These are stocks that pay a set scheduled dividend, like bonds. But unlike bonds, owning shares of preferred stock gives you a part ownership of the company, since you don't get to do that in bonds. Preferred shares of stock have higher dividend yields when compared to common shares of stock, which is what's commonly invested in the stock market. PGX is associated with 297 preferred share issues, having names like Citigroup, JP Morgan Chase, and Wells Fargo, among others. In the last 10 years, this ETF has declared about 4.48% in returns. So from your original $10,000, it's going to be at least $16,000, plus the dividend yield of 5.67%. The expense ratio of PGX, however, is slightly higher at 0.51%, paying $51 per year and $10,000 invested. On our risk-o-meter scale, this ETF only invests in preferred shares of stocks, so there's a little bit less risk with that. So it gets a rating of 3 on riskiness. Still, it's a good ETF to invest in, but we still have more in store for you. DIV. The top 3 spot is given to the Global Ag Super Dividend US ETF, or DIV for short. This ETF invests in low volatility, high dividend paying stocks, but only in the US stock market and not the S&P 500. Top holdings include Pfizer, Public Storage, and CubeSmart. Since 2013, it has given an annual return of almost 4.53%, which is a little lower than the others on the list. But don't underestimate it, because it has the highest dividend yield so far of 6.04%. However, it also has a high expense ratio of 0.45%, so that's $45 per year in your $10,000 invested. Based on our risk-o-meter, we give DIV a 5 in riskiness, since it only invests in 50 companies with relatively lower returns and higher expense ratio. It is riskier than the other ETFs here on this list. KBWD, we press on forward with number 2, and that's Invesco KWV, High Dividend Yield Financial ETF, or KBWD, the financial index that this ETF is based on is the KBW Nasdaq Financial Sector Dividend Yield Weighted Index. It tracks the performance of high dividend yield U.S. companies involved with business that provides a financial product or services, like say banks or insurance. It holds 40 stocks, and its top holdings are companies involved in financial services. So, it might not be familiar to some of us. Its 10-year average return is about 6.56%, so $10,000 10 years ago would be almost $20,000. However, its most prized value is its super high dividend yield of 9.65%, but it comes with a price. Its expense ratio is 2.59, which is the highest on this list, definitely something worth considering. On its riskiness, the riskometer gives it a 5 because it invests in 40 financial companies, and their performance will vary from time to time depending on the interest rate environment in the US. It does indeed have a high dividend yield, but it also has the highest expense ratio. So before we proceed to the highest and the top spot on our list, why don't you tell us in the comments section which ETF you've invested and how it's been so far for you? Share your thoughts to your fellow learning eggheads below. SDIV, and surely the number one spot, our last but definitely not the least, is the Global X Super Dividend ETF or SDIV. It's very similar to number 3, but the difference is that this one invests in the 100 highest dividend yielding stocks in the global market, which is why this ETF has 117 stocks with top holdings in China Power International and Yanzhou Coal Mining. It's gotten a blow with a negative annual return of 1.74%, so your $10,000 would have lost value in 10 years, but it makes up for its outstanding 13.93% in dividend yields. That's about 4% higher than the second spot. On the riskometer, it ranks on a scale of 5 because international stocks are more prone to greater volatility compared to the US market, and SDIV has an expense ratio of 0.58, so it's a little on the expensive side, paying $58 to your $10,000 of investment. So these information you'll have to take into account when deciding which ETF to invest in. And also, we'd like you to know that this video is just for informational purposes and not actual investing advice. We suggest you consult licensed professionals for that. That's all for today, folks. I hope we gave you a clear description of these monthly high dividend ETFs. And if you found this video useful, please subscribe, click the like button, and hit that notification bell for upcoming videos so you can always stay updated and become a fully fledged finance egghead like us. Catch you later, future eggheads!